One of the most hotly debated topic when it comes to athletic training is how should an athlete train in season? Because really what you want to achieve during the season, you want to maintain strength and power. What good is it to have the athlete come into the season in training camp, super strong, super powerful, only to lose 25% of their strength midway through the season? Like they will underperform, they increase the risk of injury, so it's not worth anything. And when you start the next off season, you start at a significant lower level. Then you also want to ideally maintain muscle mass. Now, even if you maintain strength and power, there's a chance that you will lose some muscle during the season simply because of the neurological stress of the season. Because if you're a pro athlete, you travel a lot, which is never good for muscle mass. You don't eat on a regular basis. You want to minimize muscle loss as much as possible. And you also want to prevent injuries. So when you look at the training, the most important thing is maintaining strength and maintaining power, but you also don't want to create any CNS fatigue. Otherwise, you won't be able to perform. Now, if you're playing football, pretty easy, because in football, you're playing once a week. Of course, a football game is essentially like having a bus accident once a week. But it's still only once a week. So the training is pretty easy to structure. If I'm a hockey player playing 3 times a week, it's a lot more difficult. But let's look at the type of training that you can do in season. What you want is things that will help you maintain your strength and power and will come at the lowest cost possible from a recovery perspective. To me, several type of training fit the bill. That's where I like velocity type training. Like you have those devices like the Beast sensor, like the push sensor. Like they are a little apparatus that you attach to a barbell and you use your cell phone and it calculates bar velocity. There's a very strong correlation between bar velocity and the percentage of your maximum you're lifting. So for example, maybe at 1 meter per second, that represents 65% of your maximum. So you can actually see if you're maintaining strength without having to lift maximum weights in training. The one approach I like to use is I will keep 80% on the barbell on the big basic lift, which is the percentage where you start to recruit all your recruitable fibers. I'm going to do sets of 3 to 5 reps, and my goal is to try to at least maintain the speed at which I'm lifting that bar for the whole season. If my barbell speed does not decrease, my strength does not decrease. And I don't have to test my max. I don't need to go into those 90-95% weight that will drain my nervous system. So that would be a good approach. I use the approach I call strength skill. Strength skill, 5 sets, or 5 to 8 sets of 3 reps with 80%, always focusing on maximum acceleration. Very little neurological stress. Because normally with 80%, you can do 6 to 8 reps with that. So doing 3 reps is the maximum. Quality is good, no injuries, no muscle damage, maximum acceleration, good strength and speed maintenance, very low neurological cost. You could do that 3 times a week and recover, that's just fine. So that's something I like to use. I also like to use isometrics. I talked about that in an earlier capsule. Pushing or pulling against pins for 6 to 9 seconds. Very low recovery cost. There's 0 muscle damage. There's very little energy expenditure. And I can recruit up to 10% more muscle fibers. So those isometrics are very good at maintaining maximum strength without causing injuries or impairing recovery. Could be done almost daily and you would recover. That's very effective. I also like prowler pushing, sled pulling, or any form of loaded carries. Why? There is very little, if any, eccentric stress. So once again, no muscle damage. And that can, if I do prowler pushing for like 30, 50 meters, I will maintain strength and maintain muscle mass with very little cost. So these 3 types of training can be done in season to maintain strength and power. I might need to add a little bit of hypertrophy work in the 40 to 60 seconds time under tension. Normally isolation exercises for muscles you feel are getting smaller. Because normally with when you train the squat, the bench, and the hip hinge, your deadlift or the Olympic lift, you will hit pretty much every muscle enough to prevent detraining. But there might be one or two smaller muscle that will atrophy. So you might need some isolation work for that and just to maintain muscle balance, structural balance, and prevent injuries. But really, isometric, strength skill, and loaded carry is the three best tools for in-season training.